Let's play Ezra and Nehemiah. This is the full detailed version. It walks you through the setup and also explains the rules and how to play the game. This video is a walkthrough tutorial that you can play along with to learn or remember how to play the game. Ezra and Nehemiah is a very complex game, and I've actually written this video or created this video for myself to remember how to play it if it's been a while, but hopefully it'll help others. Because it's so complex, we won't necessarily follow the exact order that the rule book is doing, but instead what we'll do is we'll start with the easier concepts so that you can learn how to play them and increase the complexity of your play style as you go along. I will be putting stopping points after I teach a concept that you can then try it out yourself. So the whole intention is to play along. So stop the video at any time you want if you need to play along and try things out. If you already know how to play the game and you just want to see the setup and a brief reminder of the rules, see the reminder video. So let's get started with the setup. First, get out the game board and place it in the middle of the play area. In the set of small cards, there are 6 gate cards. Place them to the right of the main player area with the outline of the worker on top. The solo game will play set up like the 2-player game. So in the 1 or 2-player game, as well as the solo game, we'll take the muster gate and the east gate. We'll flip them over so that you see the numbers 1 and 2 for the workers and place them over the spots on the playboard that are labeled muster gate and east gate. In the small cards, there's also 6 neutral wall cards. Again, in the 1 and 2-player and solo games, we'll take 3 of those neutral wall cards and place them between the muster gate and the east gate. Take another of the neutral cards and place it to the right of the east gate, and 2 of them and place them to the left of the muster gate. So that's a total of all 6 of them are going to be placed in the central spaces of the top of the board. For each of the other gates to the side of the board, again for the 1, 2, and solo player games, place 2 coins on each of the cards. For the 3-player game, we place only 1 silver coin on each of the gates. We don't place the muster gate or the east gate out onto the main board. And we only place neutral walls between the muster gate and the east gate. In the game, there's 104 resource cubes and a bag to put them in. Now, in the official setup, it says to pull out 10 of each of the resources before you put them in the bag, but I find it easy just to pull them out of the bag, so I keep them in there. The bag just makes it easy to mix up the cubes as you take them out to place them on the board. So that's what we'll do next. At the bottom of each wall section is a diamond shape with the 4 different colors representing the 4 different types of resource. And this tells you how many resource cubes to put on each wall space. So randomly draw resources to fill the wall spaces for each wall space on the board. When you're done, your board should look something like this. Place all your tokens and meeples in the main supply to the side so that they're in easy reach. I've created a box to hold mine, but that's not necessary, of course. In the game, there's a set of tiles that look like this. The fronts look this way, and the backs look like this, and these are called the scroll tiles. So the gold scroll tiles, we'll mix them up, so you'll separate all the tiles according to their back color. And the gold ones, we will put 1 out on the top row of this section of the board is dealing with the Torah. And so that will leave, there will be 6 of them, and that will leave 2 gold scroll tiles left. Then mix up the wooden scroll tiles and place them on the middle 2 rows of the Torah area here. Then randomly place the 3 stone scroll tiles face up on this bottom row. So that's going to be Nehemiah, Zerubbabel, and Ezra placed in random order. Notice to the right of each of the rows, there's a symbol that represents the number of victory points that you'll get at the end of the game for each scribe that's in this area. We will now place bread tokens next to these areas that's 1 less than the victory points. So for example, for this row, we'll place 3 bread, 2 bread, and 1 bread. If you're playing with less than 4 players, you'll place this temple tile on top of the temple area. There's a side for 3 players, and there's a side for 1 or 2 players. And of course, with the solo, you'll use the 1 or 2 player side. In the smaller cards, there are 2 double-sided cards that are called altar cards. Now, randomly select one or choose whichever one you want and place them in this area right below the altar, aligning the banners. Now, notice that there are 3 rows, and those represent the 3 rounds that we're going to play, and there's prophets that are above the banners. In this example, just note that the upper left number is 3 and the upper right number is 9. The prophets are wooden meeples. The left one, the darker one, represents Zechariah, and the lighter colored one is Haggai. And if you'll look at the top, for each round we will place these prophets on the numbered spaces above the altar track. So for example, we see Zechariah place him at 3 and Haggai at 9 on the altar track. From the larger cards, there are the 3 hero cards. Place them above the main board. In the multiplayer game, randomly determine who's going to be the first player and give them the shofar. In the solo game, the AI takes the shofar. Give each player a player board and a player 8. There are 5 different types of development tiles that we'll give to the players so that they can customize their board. There's an undeveloped side and a developed side on each of the different tiles. And you can see that the developed side has a brown background and has victory points with a gold kind of altar showing. Each of the tiles of a given type are slightly different to give a little bit of randomness to the customization. These tiles are called the guard tiles, then the laborers, the farmers, the traders, and the elders. So place the tiles in the player board, with the undeveloped side up, so the guards will be here, laborers, and you can see the little icon showing that that's a laborer, a farmer, a trader, and an elder. Each player will have 16 workers of their own player color choice. We will give each player 6 to start with, and the other 10 will go into the main supply so that they can get them later. Each player will also have a tent-shaped token that they place in this area of the board on this middle circle. So as you have other players, just stack them up. Each player also has a flame-shaped token that can be put on the 0 space of the altar track. Again, stack them up as you add the different players. Each player also has a square grooved token that is used for tracking victory points. Place that on spot number 10. Again, stack them up. Each player also has 10 character cards and 12 wall cards with a background that matches their color. Shuffle them up and put them in decks that are face down. Place them next to the player board and draw the top 4 cards of the character deck into your hand. At the bottom of the guard tile to the lower left is a set of resources. So draw those resources from the main supply and place them into spaces on your guard tile. Each player then gets 5 silver and 3 food from the main supply. There are 3 different types of blessings, and on the player board there's a track, so place your blessing markers in the 0 spot for each of the different blessings. Underneath the temple there are Levite tracks for each of the player colors. So take a meeple of the player's color and place it at the bottom of the Levite track. That meeple should be taken from the main supply and not from the player's supply. There are 4 gates at each of the corners of the board, and so the players will place one of their meeples on one of the gates in the 4-player game. So you start from the last player to the first and choose one of the gates to place your meeple. In a 2-player game, each player will have 2 gates, starting with the last player, then the first player, then the last player again, then the first player, and you get to choose. In the solo variant, you pick whatever 2 corners that you'd like, and the AI opponent gets the other 2. In a 3-player game, one of the gates will be neutral, and you can place a white meeple there if you want, but that's not necessary. In a 1 or 2-player game, take the 2 white meeples and place them on the 2 outer scrolls of the bottom roll. Most of the components are considered unlimited, so if you run out, use a suitable substitute, but the workers are considered limited. You never have more than 16 total. The player's hand limit is 4. For the solo game, you'll have these additional steps. First, you'll take out the AI player board. It's a double-sided board, and there's stars on the different sides. So as you're starting out, choose the side that has 1 star. There's also a solo player aid that you can place next to the board. There are focus cards that have the lion on the back of them. Shuffle them up and create a stack and place it in the section that has the lion on the board. Do the same thing for the scheme cards, which have a picture of a lamb on the back of them. The AI will start with workers, silver, and gold as shown on the board here, so you can just place them next to the AI board. The rest of their workers go to the main supply, just like the other players, and the same thing for the tent, the VP marker, and the altar marker. They go on the tracks, just like a regular player. The AI will use the wall cards, so you shuffle them and place them next to the player board, but they don't use the character cards. Place the blessing markers on the blessing track, just like for a normal player. The AI will start with 1 Levite, so place them on the Levite track. And as we mentioned earlier before, they'll have 2 gates on the corners of the board, and we'll need to place the 2 white meeples up here on the bottom scrolls. So that completes your setup. So let's talk about how to play the game. Now I'm just going to give a quick overview of the player board so that you can understand as the video goes on. This is the player board. It has a blessing track, and the different blessings are right here. And then there are tiles that you slot into the player board, and each of these tiles are a little bit different so that all the players are asynchronous. This tile here is called the guard tile. Over here is the laborer tile. You can see the little laborer here. There's a little farmer here, so that's the farmer tile. And then there's the trader, and then the elder. So these tiles are all double-sided. You initially put them in the undeveloped side, and we'll talk about development later. But the thing that you want to notice is that on the guard tile in particular, these resources are limited. And you can see that by these little squares. They show you how many resources that you can have. Once you develop the tile, then the resources are unlimited. So when you develop the tiles, you'll flip them over, and so there's the opposite side. This is the developed side, and we'll talk about that more later. The other thing that I wanted to let you know is which tiles I'm using in this particular video so that you can look at them and compare them if you're following along. So for the guard tile, I have the one with 6 coins up there. For developing, I've got the one with 4 wood. For the laborer, for the farmer, it has 5 cinder and bread up there. And then for the trader, it's got 4 stone, and you can see a little person up there. And so you can see for the elder, it's got 3 gold, and so you've got 2 banners, 2 blue banners, 3 red banners, and 2 gray banners. The workers that have not yet been assigned but are in your personal supply are kept next to your player board. Workers on this section of the board are referred to as Levites, and workers in this section are referred to as Scribes. Around the outer portion of the city is the wall and gates, and we have to assign a worker at each gate. We've already done that in setup at the corner gates, but there will be other gates in the middle, and when we place a worker there, it's called a gatekeeper. So now I want to talk very briefly about the symbols, just so that you can understand them. And we can start, the easiest way is we can start by looking at the tent track here. It's in the lower right-hand side of the main board. So let's start with this altar symbol. It's a silver one here, and that means that you get immediate victory points. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I just want to let you know that there's a silver one and a gold one. If it's gold, it means you get the victory points at the end of the game. This red symbol here is a blessing symbol. There's also a purple and a yellow or orange blessing. These correspond to different symbols and tokens in the blessing track on your player board. However, notice that there's also a symbol that has all three colors, so that's a wild card blessing, which means that you can apply it for any of the blessing colors. In particular, this symbol here, this means that if you cannot, if you're supposed to gain a worker but you cannot, or you're supposed to get a blessing but you cannot, then you move one space around this tent track. So that's what that symbol means, one space around the tent track. Of course, this means silver, 2 silver in this particular case. This gold is a gold resource. There are gold tokens. And you can see right here, these are the different colors of tokens. This black one is cinder, the brown one is wood, white is stone, and of course the yellow is gold. There are bread or food icons, so this would be 2 bread, worker icons, and the flame is the ability to move up the flame track. And you can see that flame track in the middle of the player board, or the bottom middle. There are different cubes that may have a mixture of colors, like for example, this one has white and brown, so that means that you can either use stone or wood in that case. Similarly, you might see this cube that has white, black, and brown, and of course it means that you can use a cube of any of those colors. There are a couple of special symbols that are dealt with when resolving the prophet's judgment that we'll talk about later. This broken bread means you lose a food. This symbol here is used in several places, and that means that you retrieve a traitor or an elder. This symbol means that you get to turn over a development tile without paying its cost. These symbols are talked about on page 26. One other symbol here should be obvious, that you get to move your tent one space and you gain 1 immediate victory point. The only other symbols I want to talk about right now are the banners, and notice that there are gray banners. Those allow you to work on the wall. Blue banners allow you to assign a scribe or do the tent, and then the red banners allow you to contribute to the altar. The rest of the symbols we'll just talk about as we encounter them as you're learning the game. Now we'll walk through an actual game by explaining one section at a time and then giving you a chance to actually play it, and we'll play through the game. One key focus of the walkthrough is to try to help you understand the symbols and the player aids. Not every rule is covered by them, but if you know how to read them properly, the game is much easier to play. Another focus is helping you to learn the concepts easily rather than maximizing your score. As a result, some of the turns may be suboptimal, and you may have to modify cards or resources a little so that it's easy to learn the concept. The tutorial will be most enjoyable if you don't worry about optimizing things during the tutorial, but just have fun exploring and learning. If you haven't already done the setup, you can stop the video now so that you can play along. Make sure you pay attention to the tiles that were placed on the player board so that you can use the same ones and follow along. During this walkthrough, we'll teach you about the AI player as well. If you're not interested in that, you can just skip those sections. The essence of the game is you will have cards that you will play in order to get these banners that you can use to construct the walls around the city. You will clear out areas and you will construct the walls and gates. You will also contribute to the altar over here using the red banners, and then you will use the blue banners to teach the Torah and assign scribes. So let's look at the player reminder and focus on this first time for each turn. It says that we play a character card with a max of 2 per pile, and we'll talk about that in a second. We'll take 1 main action, and the main actions are using these banners. And then you may optionally take 1 auxiliary action. We'll talk about that later. So we're going to focus just on playing the cards and taking a main action. So the game plays in 3 rounds that represent weeks, and as you start each week, you will start with 4 cards, and you will play these cards to the bottom of your play area. So when you do that, you will pick whichever cards you want, place it down on your play mat, and then that gives you a certain number of banners that you can use. So you will use those banners to take actions on the main board. So after you've done your actions, including some auxiliary actions that we haven't talked about yet, you will draw a card, and you will be up to 4 cards, and now it's the next player's turn. Then on your next turn, you play another one of the cards. Again, you select whichever one you want from your hand, and you will typically place it next to the previous card. So now I have a total of 4 blue banners that I could use, but I could also use 2 red banners. At the beginning of my third turn in the week, I may have 3 cards, and it could look something like that. Now, on the next turn, your 4th turn of the week, you will have 4 cards, and now you will have to place the next card on top of one of the other cards. There's no benefit to that. You actually get rid of the other cards you can't use, and so that's why typically on the first 3 turns you will spread them out. But now the new card will cover on top, and so you will use whatever banners that you've placed there. Like in this case, we happen to be using 3 red banners. So we would have a total of 5 red banners that we could use this turn, 1 blue banner, and 3 gray in this example. So if you think about it, at the end of 6 rounds, you will have 3 stacks of 2 cards each. And I point that out specifically so that you understand what this phrase, max 2 per pile, means. That means at the end of the total rounds, you have a total of 2 cards per pile. You never have more, and at the beginning, you will have less. Now, for the next section, we're going to focus on the main actions, the things that you can do with these banners. There's other things that we will do during the game, these auxiliary actions. We're just going to skip those for right now. We'll get to them later. And then on the player card, you've got the banners. There's some things that you will do with the Sabbath up here. We'll deal with those later. And things that you do for trading, those are on the bottom, and we will deal with those later. So our main focus is just these banners. We'll talk about how we can use them to do things on the main board. Whoever has the shofar goes first. Since the AI starts with the shofar, they will go first. So I'm going to explain what the AI does during the first turn before I explain what the player does in the first turn. So for this section, you need to notice that the AI player has the tent, the immediate victory point tracker, 1 Levite, and a flame. Now for this first section, we're just going to focus on the top part of the reminder card. This is called the focus cards, and we will reveal 1 focus card. Then we will make 1 trade, spending more silver if possible. Otherwise, we will move their tent 1 space. The first thing that we'll do is turn over the top card of the focus deck, and notice on the very bottom there's a trade action. And we can spend 3 silver to get 2 immediate victory points, or 5 silver to get 4 immediate victory points. One thing to notice is that there are 2 types of trades at the bottom of the focus card. Ones that have the gate icons and ones that don't. The AI follows the same rules as players when trading at the gates. So ignore the gate icon until we cover it when talking about trades on character cards. Now, when the card says spending more silver if possible, what that phrase means is that the AI tries to do the bottom trade first if it has enough silver. So it needs to have 5 silver in order to do the bottom trade. Well, the AI only starts with 2 silver, so it can't do the bottom trade. So we next look at the top trade, and it needs silver to get 2 immediate victory points. And we don't even have 3 silver. So that means it goes to the otherwise clause and says otherwise move their tent 1 space. So the AI will move their tent 1 space and collect the red blessing. So just like a regular player, the AI will move their blessing up 1 place on the blessing track. Notice that the rewards for the AI player for the moving up the blessing track are shown at the bottom. Whenever the AI is to resolve a wild blessing, they will always move the blessing that is to the leftmost on their track. So in this case, they would move the red blessing. Notice also in the middle row here are the substitutions that the AI can do. So this first one talks about if you can't do a trade, then you move the tent 1. So we've already know about that. The AI doesn't use the traders or elders, so if you're ever directed to get a trader or elder, retrieve one, then instead you move the tent 1 space. In addition, if the AI is ever supposed to get a stone, cinder, or wood, it gets a gold instead. And if it's ever directed to get bread, it gets a silver instead. One thing that isn't shown here is that any time that the AI player would receive a worker or a blessing but cannot, either because the blessing is already moved up and there are no more workers, then they move their tent 1 space. And of course, that's one space per blessing or worker that they can't receive. The next step says to reveal one scheme card and resolve the topmost action that they can complete in full. So you will turn over the scheme card, and for this section, we're just going to ignore what happens. We're just kind of using this to keep track of what we're doing if it were a normal round. Now it's your turn to practice the AI's turn. Flip over the focus card, and remember that what you turn over may be different than the example, so you may get some silver, or you may move your tent. The other thing you need to do is flip over the top scheme card. We won't do anything with it this turn. We're just practicing the game mechanics for now. Stop the video now and give that a try. Now let's talk about the player's first turn. So the first thing that we'll talk about is moving your tent around here. That's with the blue banners, and it's perhaps the easiest thing to do in the game. You will have a tent token. I'm using yellow for my player, and it starts at the upper middle and moves around. And if you notice up here, there's a legend that shows you how the banners can allow the tent to move. So for example, 2 blue banners allows your tent to move 1, 4 blue banners allows it to move 2. Then here we see that black, white, or brown, so I can use a cinder or a stone or wood in any one of those, plus 7 banners allows me to move 3 tents. If you do the tenting action, you can only do 1 action per turn. So this means that you can't combine banners to go more than 10, and you also cannot go in 2 phases. And as I move around, I can collect a reward. So if I move from here, that's 1 movement, I would get the red blessing. If I move here, I would get the 2 silver. One other thing to mention about banners is that they can be wasted. So don't stress out about that too much. But notice, for example, that in this example, we have 3 blue banners. But to move the tent around, there is no 3 banner situation. So if we do 2 banners, we will actually have to waste 1 blue banner. So situations like that can happen no matter what the color of the banner is. Now, if you notice above each of the blessing track here, there are rewards that you can gain, but you don't gain those rewards when you move a single blessing forward. You only gain those blessings when the very last when the very last blessing reaches that. In other words, when the entire set of blessings have passed or reached that area. So, for example, if I had blessings like this, then I still haven't gotten any rewards because the red one is way behind the others. But if I move the red one here, I get to move my flame forward in the altar area. If I move the red one here, then I'm able to move the tent forward 1. Now, if you recall, we talked about the silver and gold victory points. The silver ones are immediate, the gold ones are for end of game. And so if you get an immediate victory point, you move your token up the track that goes on the outside of the temple. And so notice there are 2 victory points here as you move around. Okay, now's your chance. If you haven't already done so, shuffle your character cards and draw a hand of 4 cards. If you don't have at least 1 card with at least 2 blue banners in them, reshuffle the cards and keep drawing until you get those 1 card with at least 2 banners. It's a good idea to develop the habit of reading through the player and the AI player aids so that you don't forget anything. Make sure to remember your player aid, and remember that on each turn we'll play 1 character card and take 1 main action. Now, for the first few turns, we won't take the auxiliary action or use the trader or the elder. For the first player turn, we're focusing on the blue banners, and notice it says place up to 1 scribe, up to, and optionally move your tent around the city. So we're not going to place any scribes, we're just going to move our tent. And it says pay 1 silver to the owner of each scribe which you branch off from. But since we're not placing a scribe, we don't do that part either. So we're just going to focus on move your tent around the city. After playing your card and then moving your tent, your player board should look something like this, but with different cards. You should have 1 card on your board and 3 in your hand. And then looking at the player aid, we see it says finally draw 1 character card if possible. So we will draw a character card, and that brings our hand up to 4 cards. Stop the video now and give that a try. Good job. You've completed 1 complete turn of Ezra and Nehemiah, including the solo AI. Since the AI still goes first, we will again talk about the AI's turn before we talk about the player's turn. For this next section about the AI, you already know how to deal with the focus cards, but we're going to talk about resolving actions on the scheme cards. For now, we're mainly focusing on what the symbols mean. As we walk through the tutorial, when it's the AI's turn, just skip any actions that haven't been covered yet. So the cards all have 3 sections, and the AI will try to resolve the top one first, then the middle one if it can't resolve the top, and then if it can't resolve either of the top 2, it will resolve the third one. So a number of these symbols you already know, such as the worker and the gold. But let's talk about the other symbols that may be unique to the AI. First is the 2+ or some number plus. If it's got a plus, it doesn't mean you get a 2 and something. It means that you have 2 or more. So this top action can only be done if the AI worker has 2 or more, the AI player has 2 or more workers and 2 or more gold. So that's another thing that you should notice. When you look at the cards, there's a kind of a greater than symbol. So on the left-hand side are the requirements that are necessary in order for the AI to do the action, and on the right-hand side is the action that the AI will take. And typically the requirements are necessary in order for the AI to actually do the action on the right. So what are some of these actions? This symbol here, the menorah, means that the AI will contribute to the temple. This symbol here with the wall symbol and the little pickaxe means that the AI will actually clear rubble and work on a wall. And this very last symbol here, the pickaxe, means that the AI will just clear some rubble. This card should be pretty clear. We know most of these symbols. And then the 3 flame means that the flame will move up 3 spaces on the altar track, and then we will receive 1 worker. This range here means the range from 0 to 1. So the AI player must meet this. So if the AI player had 2 gold, they would not meet this requirement. Now this symbol here, if you notice closely, it's actually a gate. So the AI player in this case will clear the rubble and try to build a gate. This symbol here with the blue arrow facing up means that the AI player will try to place a scribe in the highest location. And this symbol means that the AI will try to place a scribe in the lowest location. And notice it also says that the AI player gains a silver. Now, if you need a reminder on what these mean, look on page 33. Now, since we're learning the AI in a stepwise fashion, you may actually have to manipulate the scheme deck as we're learning until we've learned all the symbols and how to resolve all of the actions. You also may need to manipulate the resources and the workers just so that you can resolve the action when you practice. But by the 3rd round, you'll be able to run the AI completely. Now, as you might expect, the 3rd level of interaction is always easier than the top 2. And so we're going to assume in this section that the AI player cannot meet the top 2 requirements, and we'll focus only on the bottom. So in this particular case, the AI would gain 1 gold and move their flame 1 space up the altar track. When the AI moves their flame up the altar track, they gain the rewards just like a player would, but they do their substitution. So instead of getting bread, the AI player would get 1 silver. So there's only 1 symbol on the bottom that we won't deal with in this section, and that's the pickaxe. That means clearing the rubble. We will deal with that later. So if you draw one of those cards, just draw another one so that you can resolve the action. Okay, now you should stop the video and try the AI turn by flipping over the focus card and doing a trade, and then flipping over a scheme card and doing the bottom action. Stop the video now and give that a try. And now we'll talk about the basic action for the red banner, which is placing a resource on the altar. Let's now read what the player aid says for the red banners. Optionally place 1 Levite before or after your main action. Use each Levite to either place 1 resource in the temple or on the altar, or to gain 1 additional red banner this turn. For this turn, we'll focus on putting 1 resource on the altar. So if I have or play one red banner and have a cinder that I place on the altar, I'd actually place it here, then I can move up one position on the flame track. If I spend 3 red banners and place one brown token here, I can move up 2 spaces on the flame track. And I can repeat that any number of times as long as I have enough banners and resources, plus there's also a thing called Levites. In this lower section of the board, there is a set of columns for putting resource workers, and that's called the Levites. You start the game with 1 Levite, so at the beginning of the game, you can contribute 1 item to the altar or put 1 item on the altar. If you wanted to put 2 items, then you'd have to have 2 Levites, and we'll talk about how to do Levites later when we come back to the more advanced actions. When you move your flame up the flame track, also known as the altar track, you gain the resources shown below in each flame that you reach. Notice that you also have orange flames. You don't gain resources when you land on them, but the game effects can reference them later. Take a look at this portion of your player board. This reminder tells us what happens when you can't move your flame anymore because it's reached the end of the altar track. Since you can't move the flame anymore, you get 1 silver for each movement that you would have done. Now it's time for you to place 1 resource on the altar using the red banners. So you should be using the guard tile that costs 6 silver because it will have a wood and cinder, and so you will have something to use on the altar. During the setup, you had 1 Levite, so you can do 1 action on the altar. And so when you played the card, your first card in the previous turn, you may have had a red banner, and so you could play another card to give you more red banners, but you only need to have at least 1 red banner. If you have 3, you can use some wood to move 2 spaces on the altar track. If for any chance you don't have any cards with red banners, you can just draw cards until you and replace them until you get a red banner, just so that you can play this 1 turn. One other thing to note is that at this point in time, you should have 1 card that you've already played that has some blue banners. You should have 4 cards in your hand, and the rest is your draw deck. Okay, so you can stop the video, play your turn, and then come back and we'll talk about clearing rubble. Clearing rubble is one of the most important activities in the game, and since the AI still goes first for the entire round, we will first talk about how the AI clears rubble. So when you're using the AI, we'll focus on these 2 cards because again, we're still looking at that bottom section, but we want this symbol that has that pickaxe there. If you look at your AI reminder card, specifically in this section, it talks about clearing the rubble. So you see the symbol, and it says clear the rubble, gaining blessing, and 1 gold per resource cleared. So it's really that simple. But the question is, which rubble do you clear? To decide that, you look at this section of the focus card. Notice that it has a diagram of all the different spaces on the card, and one of the spaces is a black or grayish square with a white triangle in it pointing in a direction. So they will start at the space that has the black square and resolve in that location if they can. If they can't, then they move around in the direction that the arrow points. Now, if you haven't noticed yet, all of the focus cards are actually gates, and so this will always start at a gate, and so in this case we're starting at the horse gate. Now, there is one special rule about the AI. It will not try to clear rubble at a gate unless it is actually trying to build the gate. And there's only 1 card that does that, and it has that symbol. That's where they're actually building the gate. And so that's the case where it would clear rubble at a gate. In this particular case, we're just trying to clear rubble, so it's going to look for a wall. So in this particular case, they would start at the horse gate. Since that's a gate, they will not stop there, and the direction moves clockwise, and so they will move down to the first wall. And there is rubble there that they can clear, so this is the wall section that they will clear rubble on. Notice that the card says that they will gain 1 gold per resource, and they will gain the blessing. In this case, we'll take these 2 resources, put them back in the main supply, and gain 2 gold. Then the AI will gain the red blessing. Now in this case, since they are not building the wall, they will not do anything else. They've just cleared the rubble. If the space that they're clearing already has gold, they will keep that and then just turn the other resources into gold and keep them. Now, part of clearing the rubble is just to gain resources, but the other part is to build walls and gates. Now, it doesn't matter too much, but some of the walls are a little bit easier to build than others. So we're going to focus on this particular wall because it only takes 2 banners to build it. We'll talk about that more. It's upside down from this view. But if the AI tries to clear this particular wall with 2 gray banners, just have it move to another wall. So now, play the AI's turn clearing the rubble. We'll actually take 2 turns clearing rubble, but first we need to explain the player's actions. So just do 1 turn for the AI, then we'll talk about the player's actions. And then you'll play a 2nd turn of the AI clearing rubble, and then your player turn clearing the rubble. So go ahead and stop the video and take the AI's turn. So now let's talk about the gray banner types of actions. Now here I have the board kind of turned upside down compared to previous views so that you can just easily see the printing and can read right side up. So let's read what the player aid says. For the gray banners it says select 1 unbuilt wall or gate. So from that we can see that you cannot build on 2 locations in 1 turn. Clear the rubble if present and gain the blessing if the location was a wall. Optionally, build the wall or gate at the same location. So now as we build a wall or gate, the first thing that we have to do is clear the rubble. And then once we've cleared the rubble, we can pay resources and banners to actually build the gate or the wall. In the center of the board, there's a reminder showing you how much it costs in terms of gray banners to clear rubble from the city. To clear the black cinder cubes takes 1 banner. To clear the white stone or brown wood blocks takes 2 banners. And to clear gold takes 3 banners. Notice that you're not allowed to clear rubble on more than 1 section. You can only work on 1 section at a time. But you can try to clear the rubble and build the same thing if you have enough banners and resources. There's a couple more things to know about clearing the rubble at any particular section. As we said, you can only work on 1 section. You can't clear a little bit of rubble from here and then a rubble from another location in a particular turn. However, you don't have to clear all the rubble in a particular section. You can just, for example, clear the gold or clear the stone or the wood. So clearing the rubble is the way you get resources, but be aware that somebody else on another turn can clear the rest of the rubble and then build the wall. Now, if you'll notice, all of these wall sections, once you have cleared all of the rubble, then you can actually you will gain a reward of a blessing. So you don't get that blessing if you just clear part of the rubble. You have to be the one that clears the last bit of rubble, and then you get that blessing. And of course that means that you move your blessing token up 1 space on your player board. You're also not required to build the wall after you've removed the rubble. Now it's your turn to practice clearing the rubble. Don't forget that we're going to try to build this wall right here, so that's where we will clear the rubble. For this particular wall, it takes a wood and a stone to build the wall, and it just happens that the next layer over, you have a wood and a stone. So it would be nice if those were actually the ones that you had to clear off of this wall, but that's not the case. So there's a number of problems with trying to build one of these walls. You need to clear the rubble, then you might not have a wood and a stone, and you might not have any gray banners. So to try to help deal with this, we're going to actually take 2 turns to clear the rubble. So clear the rubble from this wall, but also try to clear the rubble from one of the gates, because we'll try to build a gate in the 6th turn. For the sake of our tutorial, let's build the water gate, which is right over here on the board. So when you clear the rubble for the gate, clear that one. And don't let the AI clear rubble or build this gate. So the other thing that we'll do is we will manipulate the cards so that it's easy for you to have gray banners during the next few turns. Now this should be your 3rd turn, which means that you should have 2 cards down on your player board. So go ahead and collect all your cards together and pull out the ones that have the gray banners. There should be 6 of them. You can stop the video now and do that. Next, take 2 of the cards without gray banners and put them down on your player board. take the 2 remaining cards without gray banners and put them face down as the beginning of a draw deck. You can stop the video now and do that. Then take the remaining 6 cards with those gray banners and put them face down on top of the draw deck and then draw 4. You can shuffle them up, or you can put them in a particular order that you want to go through. Okay, so you should now have 4 cards in your hand, and of course it'll be easier if you have the card with 3 gray banners, and the 2 cards with 2 gray banners. You can stop the video now and do that. Okay, now you can play 2 turns, have your player try to clear as much rubble as they can, then let the AI go, and take your second turn clearing rubble. Don't forget that on turn 4, when you play your cards, you will have to cover one of your 3 player cards that's already on the board. Stop the video now and give that a try. Good job. You've completed 4 turns. Your player board should look something like this. You should have collected some resources, and you should have 1 pile that has 2 cards. And your hand should have 4 cards. You should have cleared the rubble from this wall and one of the gates. If you weren't able to finish that, don't worry about it. Just take the resource from whatever gate you were focusing on and put it to your resources, assuming you have enough space. If you don't have enough space, then just get rid of the extra resources. Our next focus will be building a wall in turn 5 and a gate in turn 6. Now we'll talk about how the AI builds walls. Now remember that this symbol is actually a gate, not a wall. And we'll talk about that in the next section. How the AI builds a wall is very similar to how it clears rubble. So let's take a look at the player aid. It says, as above, then spend 3 gold to build the target gate or wall. What do we mean by as above? Well, it means that whenever it tries to build a wall, it's going to do the same thing that it does for clearing the rubble in terms of finding the wall that has rubble. So it's actually, when it builds a wall, it finds the location of a wall that has rubble. It clears that rubble, gaining gold per resource, and then it builds the wall. So as above means it clears the rubble and gains gold, and then it builds the wall by spending 3 gold. So it ignores all the costs that are shown on the wall, and it just spends 3 gold. And the last section says gain rewards on walls and from connections. Connections is about the gates, and we'll talk about that later. But specifically, you want to know that when you build a wall, you'll gain the rewards from the wall. Whenever a wall is built, the player who built the wall will put a wall card with their color over the wall section. They will then gain the reward shown on the wall card. Whenever the AI places a wall card, they'll use the wall card from the top of their draw pile. Notice that the requirements for building the wall is 2 gold, but to build a wall actually takes 3 gold. So where does that third one come from? Well, remember that the AI is going to look for a wall that has rubble, and so it will automatically get at least 1 more gold. Now, in the rare case when all the rubble has been cleared, and so the AI is trying to build a wall, but there's no spaces with rubble, it will stop at the first available wall space that can be built if it has 3 gold. If it doesn't have 3 gold, then it will just go to the next lower action on the scheme card. Now you can take the AI's turn building a wall. Choose any of the scheme cards that has a wall section on it, and we will focus on that action. Now this is your 5th turn, so normally there will be 4 scheme cards underneath the top card. If your AI doesn't meet the requirements for the resources, go ahead and grab whatever you need so that we can just try that turn. Okay, you can stop the video now and try the AI turn to build a wall. On this turn, we're going to build this wall. But first, we're going to talk about using a trader and an elder because they give us resources and banners. The AI doesn't deal with traders and elders. Let's look again at the player aid. We've already talked about the first section, so let's look now at, it says, you may optionally take 1 auxiliary action, use 1 trader, and use 1 elder at any point during your turn. Let's focus first on using 1 trader and using 1 elder. Now the items in green up here are for the development, and we'll talk about those in a bit. But the trader action and the elder action are really straightforward. You take your meeple, your worker, and place it in one of the slots, and you can do the action on the right. So for example, if I placed my worker here, I could get 2 silver and a food. If I placed my worker over here, I get 2 extra blue banners. Once you've placed a worker, it stays there until the end of the round. We've talked about clearing rubble for the walls and gates. Let's now talk about building walls and gates. They build about the same, but they are a little bit different. So let's first talk about building walls. You can't build a wall or gate until all the rubble has been cleared. But you can't partially build a wall, so you have to do the building of the wall, that step, in one step. Building the wall is actually pretty simple. You just pay the number of banners shown on the wall plus the number of resources. So in this particular case, you would pay 3 gray banners, 2 wood, and 1 stone. Now, if you did clearing for a particular wall and tried to build it in the same step, you can use the resources that you have cleared, but the banners that are used, remember we use gray banners to clear the rubble, the banners that were used for there cannot be used again here, so that needs to be another set of banners. However, the resources, the rubble that you have cleared, can be used immediately to pay for building the wall. Now recall, in the board, there is a section that tells you how many banners to use to clear the rubble, but there's also another section that reminds you that you can actually do substitution. So for every wood or stone that is required for building the wall, you can actually substitute with gold. So gold could be used instead, or you could substitute by paying 3 gray banners. After you've built the wall, you draw 3 cards from your wall deck, and you pick one of them to be your wall, and you gain that resource, or the reward that you get. The other cards, you put 1 on the top and 1 on the bottom. Do notice that the different wall sections do have different victory points associated with them, so that can affect your choice. There is a rare case that you might have less than 3 cards in your draw deck, so you just draw as many as you can. And of course, if there's 2, you would place one of them onto the wall area and put the other one back as your draw deck. And if there's only 1, well, then that becomes the wall. Now it's your turn to build this wall that we've been planning for. You should have the resources that you need to build the wall, but if you don't, just grab them from the supply. To build this particular wall only takes 2 gray banners, so you should have enough gray banners to build the wall. Don't forget that you count all the banners on your player board after placing your card. Plus, you can use traders and elders to gain banners and resources. If for any reason you don't have enough banners, just replace the cards as needed to build your wall. Stop the video now and build your wall. For the 6th turn, we'll learn about building a gate. Building a gate is just like building a wall with one exception. You actually have to have a worker that you will place on the gate after it's built. So if you don't have that extra worker for being able to place there, you can't build the gate. But if you have the banners, resources, and the worker to build the gate, then you place the gate from the side of the board onto the gate location, and you collect all the silver that was on that gate. You then place your worker on the card as a gatekeeper, and notice to the lower right there is an immediate reward. So in this particular case, you get to move your tent 1 space. Gates have connections, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Let's ignore that for now and just let the AI build the gate. The only new thing that we need to know about is what happens if the selected gate is already built. If you're building a gate, if that gate is already built, or is a neutral gate, then you skip it and go to the next gate. In the rare case that all of the gates are built, the AI will skip that level of the scheme card and go to the next level below it. When the AI builds a gate, it gets the same immediate and connection rewards as a player. Don't forget that we're wanting to build the water gate, so don't let the AI build there. If the AI chooses this gate, then just select the next available one. Now it's the AI's turn. Select the card that directs the AI to build a gate, and if the AI doesn't have 2 gold and a worker, grab them from the supply. Stop the video now and take the AI's turn. Now let's talk about gate connections. So notice at the top of this gate, there's another kind of reward. That is used for when you make connections. So let's talk about that. Notice in this particular example, we have a gate, but there isn't a wall built to the left and to the right. So there is no connection between this gate and either wall on either side. However, if someone comes along later and builds a wall, it is connected to the gate now. And so what will happen is both players, the player that built the wall and the player that built the gate, gain the resources shown on the top of the gate. Now, if the same player owns both of them, they don't get twice. But any number of players that are connected to the gate get this reward. So for example, if we already had 2 walls built and we had 3 players, and we built this gate with a new player, then the blue player, the yellow player, and the red player would all get the reward of 1 wood and 1 silver. The corner gates aren't actually built. They're assigned gatekeepers at the beginning of the game, but the connection rule still applies. So if, for example, if the blue player built a wall next to the fountain gate, the blue player and the yellow player would both get a wood and a cinder. Same thing if a red player built next to that gate, the red and yellow would get the wood and cinder. Now let's consider some very interesting connections. So let's suppose that a single player had built the walls to the left and right of the dung gate, and now a different player builds the gate in between them. So this is actually 2 different connections. So the blue player would get the wood and silver twice because we have a connection on the left and a connection on the right. But also the yellow player would get the reward twice because there's a connection on the left and a connection on the right. Similarly, if the yellow player had built both of the walls and then now builds the gate in between the 2 walls, he gets paid twice because it's 2 different connections. So that will be the same result as if he had built the gate first and then built a wall next to it and then built another wall next to the other side. Now let's take the player's last turn of the week and build a gate. Since we're going to build a water gate and we want to talk about gate connections, let's also assume that the AI has cleared this wall and built a wall here. So if the AI hasn't actually done it, clear the rubble from this wall here and place a wall with a blue banner up on top to represent the AI, if you're using blue for the AI. Now when you build the water gate, both you and the AI will get the rewards from the connection here, 1 bread and 1 silver. If you need to, grab any resources that you might need and rearrange cards just so that you can be successful in building a gate. Don't forget to use your trader and elder actions. And you can try the turn a couple of times just to get the hang of things and get used to clearing rubble and building gates and walls. So stop the video now and give it a try. Congratulations, you've completed an entire week. Now it's time to learn about the Sabbath. Each round represents 6 days in which you will do work and then you will rest on the Sabbath. So in playing that, that means that you will have 2 cards in each spot. Remember, you can't have more than 2. So after all players have taken their 6 turns, now you prepare for the Sabbath. The phases of the Sabbath are resolved for all players simultaneously. And so in this section, we will talk about both the player and the AI at the same time. So first we'll start by flipping over the player aids, and on the back it describes the Sabbath for both the player and AI. So we'll go through the prepare for Sabbath for the player and then for the AI, then we'll do the Sabbath for the player and then the AI, and then after Sabbath for the player and then the AI. Notice that each phase of the Sabbath has a special symbol to describe that phase. So for example, this one is prepare for Sabbath and this one actually is the Sabbath. Those icons can show up on the different elements in the game, such as scroll tiles or farmer tiles, and so they show you different actions that you can take during those phases of the game. One thing to pay attention on the farmer tile when you've developed it is that the action you get is per preparing for the Sabbath. So you only get 1 food in this case when you prepare for the Sabbath. You don't get it for each farmer that's on that tile. So let's talk about preparing for the Sabbath, indicated by this icon. Now, in preparing for the Sabbath, the first thing that we do is we use any leftover workers that we have as farmers or laborers. We can choose which one we want to do. Now, notice over here where the laborer is here, and we have a choice of either collecting two different resources of our choice, cinder, stone, or wood, or collecting a resource, cinder, stone, or wood, and 2 silver. That's if we take the laborer action. On the other hand, we could do a farmer action and we would gain 2 food. So this is not actually an action that is done on the Sabbath because we're preparing for the Sabbath. This is as if these workers had been working all week before. The next thing you do is resolve the prophet's judgment. You do that by looking at the card, and based upon the round and your position of your flame relative to the prophet's, what will happen. So in this particular case, if I were before space 3, before Zechariah, I would gain 1 food. However, if my flame is between Zechariah and Haggai, which is on space 9, this symbol here means that I retrieve either a trader or an elder. So this would mean I would take one of my workers, it doesn't matter which one I choose, and then I've retrieved them. So now, since I'm preparing for Sabbath, they need to be assigned to either the laborer action or the farmer action. And again, we gain the resources of the reward. So if I use the farmer action, I would gain 2 food. Stop the video and resolve prepare for Sabbath for the player. So now let's talk about prepare for Sabbath for the AI. So in the prepare for Sabbath phase, all we need to do is resolve the prophet's judgment on the solo board. The AI uses the altar track for resolving the prophet's judgment, but their rewards are unique. Those rewards are shown in the upper left of the AI solo board. So if the AI's flame is to the left of Zechariah on the altar track, then they will lose 2 immediate victory points. If it's between Zechariah and Haggai, then the AI gains 1 gold. And if it's to the right of Haggai, then the AI gains 1 immediate victory point. Stop the video and resolve prepare for Sabbath for the AI. Now let's talk about the Sabbath itself, indicated by this icon. The first thing that we do is we pay 1 food per worker, excluding the Levites. And you'll lose 2 victory points per worker that you cannot or choose not to feed. So it is possible in the early part of the game that you actually might lose victory points less than 0. Just wrap it around and you'll definitely pick them up later on in the game. And the last step of the Sabbath for the player is to tuck the required character cards and score all tucked character cards. What that means is, from the character cards that you have played during the previous week or round, you choose one of them that you wish to basically no longer use. And you will get the benefit of the banner that's shown here, but you will also, for each round, get the benefit as shown at the top of the card. When you take the first card, just put it behind the player aid with only the banner and the Sabbath rewards showing. Whenever you tuck other cards, use the same approach, but tuck them underneath the existing cards. The banner can be used on all future turns. The scoring for each tucked character card is applied each Sabbath, and in this particular case you would get 1 victory point plus an extra victory point for each gatekeeper that is yours. Page 40 describes all the character scoring for each of the characters. In this part of the board, it shows the number of cards that you tuck during the Sabbath. So in the first week, you tuck 1 card, and in the second week, you tuck 2, and third week, you tuck 1. Stop the video and resolve the Sabbath for the player. Now we can talk about the actual Sabbath for the AI. We haven't talked about some of these things, so you won't score points for them in this round. For those items, just try to understand the meaning of the player aid so you can apply them in the future Sabbaths. Now you should notice that near the middle of the AI player board, starting with the 2 candlesticks, are the rewards that the AI gets on the Sabbath. But they are described in text on the Sabbath section of the AI player aid. So the symbols match the text. Now, if you'll notice, there are two sections on the Sabbath area, one that starts with 1 star and one that starts with 2 stars, and that's because the player board has 2 sides. And as we saw in the setup, the star is shown here where the focus cards are going to be, and so the easier side with 1 star has a little bit different rewards than the 2 star side. So we're currently working with the 1 star side, and so what will happen is at Sabbath time, the AI will gain 1 silver per worker. Now that's a worker not in the Levite area, not in the Scribe area, and not in the gates. That's a worker in your supply. Next, we will gain victory points equal to the row value of the highest scroll tile. The highest scroll tile means the highest row that contains an AI scribe. The victory points are shown to the right of the row. So that's the victory points shown here. Now notice that they're in gold, which means that you will get victory points per scribe at the end of the game. But at this phase, what we're getting is we're getting victory points just for the row, so one time, not per scribe. But that does happen every Sabbath. Next, we will gain 1 victory point per gatekeeper, scribe, or Levite, of which they have the most. And that's what this symbol represents. It's a little hard to read. If you look at the side 2, it's a little easier to see where that symbol comes from because the gatekeeper is shown as a dark meeple, the scribes are shown as a light blue, and then the Levites are shown as a red meeple. And so that's why they combine them together. And that's why you see also the little blue arrow saying whichever's most. Now you'll see little black slash lines between the blessing and the flame and the meeple, so you might think that that means or, but it actually means and. So you're going to get points for the workers that we just talked about, but you also get points for blessings and for the flame. Now it says the phrase rightmost blessing, and what that means is you gain victory points equal to the rightmost blessing. So in this example, they would get 2 points. And then they will get 1 victory point for each golden space on their altar track that they have reached or passed. So if they were here, they would get 1 victory point, and if they were here, they would get 2 victory points. And of course, all those victory points are done in the immediate victory point track. Stop the video and resolve the Sabbath for the AI. Now let's talk about the things that happen after the Sabbath. Notice that it says for rounds 1 and 2 because on round 3, you actually go to in-game scoring. First, we'll move the prophets and pass the shofar. Remember, the shofar is the thing that determines who goes first. So the first player changes every round, not every turn. And what do we mean by moving the prophets? After the Sabbath, you'll move your prophets based upon the row representing the round. So on round 2, the darker prophet will move to space 6, and the lighter prophet will move to space 11. The next step is that we retrieve all workers from the player's board. Notice that we're not retrieving them from the main board, just the player's board. The next step is that the altar leader gains a new worker. This portion of the board shows us what happens, what rewards you get for the altar leader. That's what this symbol, the flame and farthest forward, this blue arrow means the farthest forward. So for round 1 or week 1, you get a worker. Round 2, you get a worker. And then in round 3, you get 3 victory points. Now, this step actually applies to the players and the AI, because the AI does compete for the altar leader and they will get a worker if they are the altar leader. The next step says to shuffle all character cards on your player board to form a new draw pile. And what does that mean? When the Sabbath starts, you will have 3 piles of 2 cards on your player board, and you'll have a hand of 4 cards. In round 2, you'll have a hand of 3 cards. During the Sabbath, you will have tucked one of your character cards behind your player aid. That means you'll take the remaining cards from your player board and shuffle them up to form the new draw deck. The last step says draw 1 character card to hand round 2. So in round 2, you'll have only 3 cards in your hand, so you'll have to draw the top card to make your hand of 4 cards. Stop the video and resolve after Sabbath for the player. Now let's talk about after Sabbath for the AI. All you do there is shuffle all the focus cards and the scheme cards back into their respective draw piles. Because of the way we're doing the tutorial, the AI may have accumulated more workers and gold than normal. As a result, for this round after the Sabbath, reset the resources for the AI such that you have 2 workers, 2 gold, and 2 silver. Stop the video and resolve after Sabbath for the AI. Since the shofar was passed to the player after the Sabbath, you'll be going before the AI this round. We'll now turn our attention to the auxiliary actions. As the player aid says, you may optionally take 1 auxiliary action, and that action can be done anytime during your turn. So for your auxiliary action, you can either play the bottom of your character card to do a trade, or you can do development. So let's focus on the character cards. So notice that there are actually 2 different types of trading that can be done on the character cards. One is turning silver into resources, and the other one is turning resources into silver. And notice they're always done at the gates. That doesn't mean you actually have to go to the gate, it's just a thematic kind of thing. But for the turning silver into resources, you actually do pay to the particular gate. So in this case, for example, we would play 1 silver to the east gate. Now in the 1 and 2 player game, the east gate is neutral, so you pay the silver to the main supply. If the gate has already been built by someone, including these corner gates, you pay the silver to the owner of the gate, which is shown by their colored meeple. If the gate has not been built yet, then you place the silver on the card so that the person that builds the gate can collect the silver at that time. After you pay your silver at the gate, you can do either the top or the bottom action. So you could turn 1 silver into 1 gold or 4 silver into 2 gold. One thing to note about if you're turning silver into resources with the character card doing the trade, you'll pay the first silver to the gate, as we've already talked about, but the remaining silver is paid to the main supply. Recall that earlier we pointed out that some of the focus cards have the gate symbol with the silver on top. Now that you understand this, the AI uses the same rules that players do in terms of paying tax to the gate. Some of the character cards allow you to turn resources into silver. In those cases, you don't have to pay any tax at the gate. All you do is turn in your resource for the silver, and you can do that any number of times. Now would be a good time to stop the video and study the different character trading actions on the bottom of your cards. Stop the video now if you'd like to do that. So now let's talk about the develop auxiliary action. Each of the development tiles has a grayish colored section and a green section. The grayish colored section is the cost to develop the tile, and the green colored section tells you the reward that you get. So for example, this guard tile here, you could be developed by paying 6 silver, and you will get the reward of moving 1/10 space. In addition to getting the reward, when you develop a tile, you just flip it over and turn it to the developed side, and there will be greater benefits on the developed side. In addition, you will also get 2 victory points at the end of the game because it's gold. So now notice for the guard tile, the resources are unlimited. There's no squares on there. Remember, on the undeveloped side, they are limited, and so that means that at the end of each turn, if you have more resources than will fit on your guard tile, they must be turned into the main supply. There's a couple of extra points to be aware of with respect to the trader and the elder. The first one is that when you flip over the tile for developing it, you will see that as we talked about, the developed side, it has more powerful resources. You don't get those extra resources when you flip over the tile. And also, the workers do not move. They stay in place, again, till the end of the round. The other thing that I want to point out is this symbol here that we haven't really talked about, and that means that you can retrieve either an elder or a trader back to your personal supply. You do that immediately when you develop this tile in this particular case. Now you should take the next 4 turns to do character trades and development. What banners you use is up to you, but you may want to clear rubble to collect resources for developing or trading. Feel free to grab resources from the main supply or replace cards if you get stuck, but don't forget that you can use the trader or the elder to get resources or banners. Also, don't forget that you have a banner tucked behind your player aid. Note that you don't have to do your trader, elder, or auxiliary action at any particular order. You can do them anytime during your turn. Finally, the AI doesn't use the trader, elder, or auxiliary actions, so there's nothing new to do except that now that you know about paying silver at the gates, make sure that the AI pays the silver when it's doing any of the trade actions at the gates. For the scheme cards, remember we start at the top action, and if we meet the requirements, we do that, and then move down if we don't meet the requirements. So just continue to do it that way, and skip any actions that we haven't covered yet. Stop the video now and play the next 4 turns with you going first, followed by the AI. Let's now talk about advanced actions using the red banners. We've already talked about placing a resource on the altar. And when we talked about that, we mentioned that you had to have a Levite in order to place that resource. So let's talk a little bit more about Levites. This section of the board is where you place your Levites, and each player has their own column of Levites, so up to 6 Levites. Each player will start with 1 Levite, but what's the value of Levites? Well, we've already mentioned that you have to have a Levite for each resource that you want to place, but also you can use a Levite to add an extra red banner to your current action. And how do I get more Levites? Well, I have to have a worker in my normal supply, and then I pay the food on the left and then place the worker in the column above the lowest Levite in my column. So for example, here we would pay 2 food, and I would get the resource or the reward on the right. So in this case, I would get 1 cinder. Now, when can I place the Levites? I can place 1 Levite either before or after my main action if I'm doing the red banner action. I might do it after, because if I have 5 red banners and I place a resource in the temple, I can get another worker. But no matter what, I'm never allowed to place a Levite during the main action. So now let's talk about adding resources to the temple. You can add resources as many times as you'd like, as long as you have Levites for each resource and the number of banners to cover the area that you're trying to put the resource in. Let's suppose that I had 3 red banners and 2 Levites. I could put 1 resource at the 3 banner level, or I could put a resource at the 2 red banner level and a resource at the 1 red banner level. Now at the top you can see the types of resources that you can place in the temple. You can place stone, wood, or gold. You can't place cinder in the temple. If you place stone or wood, you gain 1 immediate victory point, and if you place gold, you get 2 immediate victory points. Now, when you place resources in the temple, you must place it in the leftmost available column. After you place the resource, you also gain the immediate reward shown to the right of the row that you place the resource. So in this particular case, you would get 1 food as an immediate reward. So the total rewards you'd get for placing wood in this particular location would be 1 immediate victory point and 1 food. Now notice that in the temple it has 3 sectors. It doesn't matter how many players you're playing with, there's 3 sectors. In the 1 to 2 player games, they're in columns. When you completely fill a sector with resources, then you gain the rewards shown at the bottom of this area here. You do not have to fill the previous sector before moving to the next sector. But when you place the last resource in a sector, then you get the rewards shown at the bottom. The person that placed the resource that filled the sector gets 2 food. Then the person with the most Levites gains 2 immediate victory points. The Levites are seen by this red worker with the menorah next to it, and this up arrow with the bar on top means the most. And then in the 1 and 2 player game, all players get 1 silver for each Levite that they have. Now in the 3 and 4 player games, there's a third option, which is the player with the least number of Levites loses an immediate victory point. Now, whenever there's a tie in terms of the number of Levites, the tie is resolved by which flame is furthest ahead or behind on the altar track. Now, because you stack the flames up as they move over, if ever the flames are in the same location, the flame on the bottom is furthest ahead, and the flame that's highest up is furthest behind. And finally, if ever the temple is full of resources, you cannot add a resource to the temple anymore. Okay, now's a good time to stop the video and contribute to the temple. Make sure that you first do add one Levite, and then try to contribute to the temple up here. It should only take you one turn. But if you don't have a stone, wood, or gold, go ahead and draw one from the main supply just so that we can learn how to do this. And don't forget about that elder. You can get 3 red banners on this turn. Stop the video now and give that a try. Now let's talk about actions for the AI worker contributing to the temple. There are only 2 cards that allow them to do that, and notice that both of them require that you've got 2 or more workers and 2 or more gold. So we'll follow the instructions that are shown here on the scheme card, and notice that the first thing says pay 2 gold to place 1 Levite if possible and gain the row reward. If possible is of course referring to the fact that you only have 6 Levites, so if you already have 6 there, you can't do that, so you'll just skip that first step. But normally you'll just place 1 Levite at the next level. You will never pay this food because that's what the gold is about, and you will collect the reward that's shown on the right side of the row. The next section says, for each Levite, either place 1 gold in the temple, spend 1 silver to gain 1 gold, or move 1 space on the altar track. And what we're doing here is we're doing them in priority order because you may not have enough gold to do this, because the action only required that you have 2 gold, which allows you to place your Levite. So if you do have gold to contribute, you will place it in the leftmost, bottommost section of the temple, and you will gain the reward shown on the right side. If you don't have gold to contribute, then you will spend 1 silver to gain 1 gold. But if you don't have 1 silver, you will move 1 space on the altar track. Recall that if any player cannot move past the end of the altar track, they gain 1 silver per movement that they can't make. And finally, the card says gain 2 victory points and row rewards for each gold place. We've already talked about the row rewards, and the 2 victory points are because whenever you contribute gold, you gain 2 immediate victory points. For this turn, choose an AI card that contributes to the temple. Grab any resources that you need in order to meet the requirements for contributing to the temple. So go ahead and give that a try. Let's now talk about using the blue banners to teach the Torah that's in this section of the board. The very bottom row is composed of the heroes Nehemia, Ezra, and Zerubbabel. And on the 1 and 2 player games, we will start with white workers on the 2 outside tokens. We'll talk more about the white workers later. The workers are called scribes, and in a 3 and 4 player game, we don't start with any scribes on the bottom row. If you place a scribe on one of the heroes, you will get 2 benefits. First, you will get an immediate benefit based upon the round that you're in. So in the first round, you will get the first item. The second round, you'll get the middle item. And on the third round, you get the last item as your immediate reward. Next, you will tuck your card behind your player aid, and you will get an extra banner to be used for the rest of the game. In order to place a scribe, you must first pay the cost on the left-hand side of the scrolls. Notice that these are scrolls, each row, and they're scroll tiles. So for example, in the first row, you must pay 3 blue banners plus 2 silver to place a scribe in any place on this row. And to put scribes in the higher level rows, you must build upon the scribes below. So anyone can put scribes in the lowest row if they satisfy the requirements on the left-hand side. Once they do that, it opens up the tiles above them and adjacent to them. So each tile will have 2 tiles that will open up. So now a scribe can be placed on this tile or that tile if the 5 blue banners and 3 silver are paid. So for example, if we place a worker here or a scribe right there, then these 2 tiles will open up. It's for this reason that the 1 and 2 player game starts with white workers on the outermost edges of the bottom row, so that you can actually start by building up without necessarily having to place a scribe in the hero row. So with this setup, we've got a scribe all the way on the left and a scribe on the right. So if I wanted to place a scribe, I could place one anywhere on the second row, because these two tiles are adjacent to this scribe and these two tiles are adjacent to that scribe. And when I place my scribe on the row, if I've paid this cost of 5 banners and 3 silver, I also have to pay a silver for every scribe in the path coming to my location. So I would pay a silver silver to the white scribe. But of course, since there's no white player, we pay that silver to the main supply. Now, if I'm the first person to put a scribe in a particular row, I get an extra reward of collecting all the food on the right-hand side of the scroll. Now, let's imagine if the blue player wants to place a scribe in this position, he would have to pay the 7 banners plus 2 gold, and also 1 silver, depending upon the path. He could go in this path to get down to the base, or this path, or that path. Since he's the blue player, he would want to go through this player since he doesn't have to pay silver to himself. So he would have to pay 1 silver to the yellow player, either going this way or that way. Then he doesn't have to pay anything if he goes through the blue player here, and then pays 1 silver to the main supply to get down to the base. And of course, by being the first player there, he collects all of the food on the right-hand side. Let's talk a little bit more about the white scribes for the 1 and 2 player game. They don't block the ability to place scribes there. So if a player wants to place a scribe in Zerubbabel's position, they would place the scribe here and the white one would move up. And the white one always moves to the outermost edge. So on the right side, it moves up to the right side, and on the left side, it would move out to the left. The primary purpose of the white scribes is so that you can build off of them if you don't want to place a worker in that location. So if I do place a worker so that the white scribe moves all the way up to the top row, you can just move the white scribe off because you're not going to build above the top row. So the simplest thing to know about teaching the Torah is that on the right-hand side you can see the number of victory points that will be given to every scribe in each particular row. So every scribe in this row here will get 2 victory points. Every scribe on this row will get 1 victory point at the end of the game. And you can also see that most of the tiles do have an immediate reward in terms of victory points. So that's one benefit of selecting tiles up here. But of course, the other benefit that's a little bit harder to understand is all the special actions or special benefits that you get for each particular tile. So you would look at pages 38 and 39 to understand those. So you would take a little bit of time to understand them so that you can maximize your points. And the scribes stay on these tiles for the rest of the game, so you get those benefits for the rest of the game. Whenever you're working with the blue banners, you can place 1 scribe, or you can move your tent once, or you can do both of those actions, but you can only do each of them 1 time. And you can do them in either order. This should be your last turn of the second week. You'll place a scribe somewhere on the scroll area. Again, if you need resources or workers, gain them from the supply and adjust cards as needed. Stop the video now and give that a try. So now let's talk about the AI and scribes, and there's only 2 cards that have those actions. One that tries to put the scribe at the highest scroll, and one that puts one at the lowest scroll. Notice the requirements for the highest scroll is 2 or more workers and 2 or more gold, and for the lowest scroll it's 1 or more worker and 1 or more gold. So the phrasing says, place 1 scribe on the highest or lowest scroll tile, paying the required gold. Now the highest and lowest, of course, is based upon the arrow that's shown on the scheme card that you've drawn. Lowest scroll tile, of course, means the lowest row where you can actually place a worker. And recall that you can substitute and replace for the white workers. If you place an AI scribe on one of the heroes, It does get the immediate reward based upon the current round, but it doesn't really get any advantage from the banner. So you can put the card to the side after you collect the immediate reward. And of course, highest scroll tile means the highest row where the AI can place a worker, remembering that you have to branch on top of other workers to reach higher rows. Now the phrase also says paying the required gold, and unfortunately it doesn't explain it well here. Now notice there's some gold over here, but that's not what we're referring to. And this is typically the price that the players will use, but the AI uses a different thing. They will spend gold to pay to place a scribe, and the amount of gold is determined by the victory points on the right side of the row. However, they will subtract 1 gold for every row that is completely filled by non-white workers. So in this particular case, if we wanted to place a worker on this row, it wouldn't be 4 gold, it'd be 4 gold minus 1 for this row. Now, again, this row is not counting because it's got some white workers there. Now, in some cases, you may only have one place that you could place a scribe. However, in most cases, when you're placing scribes, you've got multiple options. So, for example, in this case, we've got 2 different places that we could place a scribe if we had to place it on the highest row. So how does the AI determine where they're going to place their scribe? For that, we again look at the diagram on the top card of the discard pile for the focus deck. Notice that the diagram has 4 columns of gates, and we'll use that to divide things up. And it all depends upon how many possibilities there are for those scribe placements. So if there's only one possibility, of course, you place the scribe wherever it can go. If there's 2 possibilities, you will take this diagram and you will divide it in half. Now, you will always look at this black square to determine which side you're going to place it on. So if we divide it in half, we've got a left side and we've got a right side. And so since the black square is on the right side, you would place the scribe on the right side. If there were 3 possibilities, you put the dividing line right after the rightmost column and the leftmost column. And so if the black square is in the rightmost column, you would put the scribe in the rightmost option. If the square is in the leftmost column, then you'd put it in the leftmost option. And if it's in either of the 2 middle columns, you would put it in the middle option. If there are 4 possibilities, that's pretty easy because you just put it in the location that corresponds to the column where the black square is. If there are 5 possibilities, such as in this case, you ignore the middle option and then just resolve it like you do for a 4 possibility situation. And if there are 6 possibilities, you ignore the middle 2. Recall that when you place a scribe, you have to pay silver for each scribe you build off of in the path. And so that's what this next section talks about. But you kind of have to read it a little bit carefully to know exactly what it's saying. You gain silver from the main supply, and the you in this case is not the AI. It's you as a player. So if the AI player is building off of your scribes, you will gain silver from the main supply for each of your scribes they branch from. So the AI doesn't pay you from their supply. You get it from the main supply. And the AI, they, must pay 1 silver to use white workers. So if they are building off a white worker, they need to pay it from their supply. And just as a quick note, if you have to branch off an AI scribe, then you do pay the AI from your supply. Now that brings up some interesting points. First of all, in terms of how they branch, they do want to branch off of their scribes first so that they don't have to pay any silver, and they will branch off of white scribes instead of branching off of your scribes, so that they would pay to the supply as opposed to pay to you. If they don't have the silver to pay for branching off of a white worker, they will branch off of you if they can, because that comes from the main supply, not their supply. However, if they must branch off of a white worker and they don't have the silver, then that option is not considered a valid option. So they will have to choose another option. Now, in the case when they're looking for the highest row, if they can't place at the highest row, then they'll look for trying to place it at a lower row. And if they can't place at a lower row, either because they don't have the silver, or they don't have an option, or they don't have enough gold, then they will look for the next lower action on their scheme card. So of course, highest scroll means the highest one that they could possibly put something in. The final phrase says that they gain immediate rewards from hero cards. So when they place a scribe on Nehemiah, Ezra, or Zerubbabel, they get the rewards there. The other rewards that the AI player can get is the bread or food to the right if they're the first scribe placed in a particular row. Of course, they will turn that food into silver. However, you do need to understand that the AI will ignore all icons, including immediate victory points, for all of the tiles. Now it's the AI's turn to go. For the next turn, choose an AI card that places a scribe. Grab any resources you need to meet the requirements to place the scribe. Stop the video now and complete the AI turn. Great job. You've now completed the second round except for the Sabbath. Go ahead and complete the Sabbath and then complete the third round and Sabbath on your own. Don't forget to pass the shofar so that the AI goes first on the last week. When you've completed all 3 weeks or rounds, including the Sabbaths, then come back and we'll talk about in-game scoring. Stop the video now and give that a try. There are a couple of things to point out before you start scoring. First, make sure that you've completed not only the work days of the third week, but also completed the Sabbath. Next, what does VP from scribes and scroll tiles mean? VPs from scribes means the victory points for each scribe in a particular row based upon the gold victory point symbol on the right of the row. Both players and AI collect that. VP from scroll tiles means the specific gold victory points on the individual tiles on the top row. Only players collect that, AI doesn't. Once you've completed the third round, it's time to do the in-game scoring. And both of the different types of player aids, the one for the AI and the one for the regular player, have in-game scoring on the back. Now the victory point track will record not only the immediate victory points, but the final victory points. So you will just add them to the immediate victory points they already have. And of course, if you go past 99, just consider it 100 at space 0 and keep counting. The player with the highest victory points is the winner. If there's a tie, then you look to see who is furthest ahead on the altar track. And remember, the player on the bottom is the one that is furthest ahead. So that's how you play Ezra and Nehemiah. I hope the video has been helpful and that you enjoy playing the game.